each of you do not possess the wherewithal to have the motivation or the intrinsic desire to learn about leadership in a productive way that will benefit your organization. You know, there's this opportunity to go to a symposium on the benefits of leadership. And from this, you may have the opportunity to hear some things and some ideas that may change your perspective and your outlook on how you value not only your team, but also how you may reevaluate your organizational skills and your abilities. I invite you to gather some ideas, and let's come back and talk about these concepts and these theories and see what we can do to reapply those for your organization for a betterment of yourself and them. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Shane Owen, and what I just gave to you were two examples of a Theory X mindset of a manager and a Theory Y mindset of a leader. Theory X and Theory Y was created back in the 1950s and the 1960s by a gentleman by the name of Daniel McGregor, and what he was surveying and studying was how do managers or leaders review and look at their employees. Theory X leadership looks at their employees as though they are lazy and that they do not have any desires to go and learn what they need to do and apply that knowledge to their jobs. They have to be forced to do their jobs, in fact. And Theory Y, their employees come to work because they love the job. They love the people that they work with. They feel that they have some onus in the team and the work that they do, and that their supervisors allow them to make decisions, and that their supervisors back them up and support them, and so they have this more desire to be a part of that company. The only real similarity between Theory X and Theory Y is a reward. Unfortunately, in Theory X, the reward is either I may get a bonus at the end of the year, or I may not get in trouble by doing what it is my supervisor wants me to do. So the reward is out of fear. Theory Y, the reward may be at the end of the appraisal year, or the end of the a bonus, a salary increase, whatever. But there's still that reward. But the employees aren't there looking for that reward. They're there because they want to be there. Many years ago, I was a supervisor for an organization, and I was promoted within a team and of a group of people that I had worked with several years prior to this event, in my promotion. And when I got the team that I was being put over as a supervisor, leadership and other people had told me that what I was inheriting was literally the modern day version of a 1976 movie called The Bad News Bears, starring Walter Matthau. Basically, it was a movie that was about a whole bunch of community kids that were the ragtag. Nobody really wanted them. And Walter Matthau ended up making a little minor league baseball team out of them, not even minor league, a little league. And they ended up learning camaraderie and coming together and unifying for the greater good, which is the team. And as I was working with this team, everybody told me that this team was unmotivated, undesired. Nobody wanted to do anything. They had to be micromanaged. And that was what I was expecting to get. And I was like, cool, thanks. So back then, I didn't know the differences between Theory X and Theory Y, but what I did know is that I myself did not like micromanaging. However, I'm being told that I have to micromanage the very team that I've worked with. And so, because I was a new supervisor, I felt I had to do what it was that had been done by previous supervisors before me, which was micromanage the team. And as I was doing this to them, what I found was that the differences between me and them, not only with my organizational hierarchy, but we were separated deeper than the Mariana Trench. There was no trust, there was no communication. They came to work, they did their job, they didn't want to be messed with, yada, 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 and so on and so forth. Well, I had a peer supervisor at that time, and he turned me onto a book, and the book talked about decentralized command. And as I read the book and I started to understand the concept of decentralized command, what I had learned, basically in short, was tell the team what they want done or what you need to have done by when you want them to have it done by, and you let them figure it out and you get out of the way. And so I started applying that skill and that ideology a little bit more and more. And one day when I was out and about talking to one of my team members, he hit me up with a pretty hard question. And that question was, hey, boss, why don't you ever come out and see us? Okay. So I took some time to get out and grant Theory Y leadership by getting to know my team members. I got to know who they were. I got to build layers of trust with them because you got to have that trust, especially in Theory Y leadership. If your team has your trust, then they will trust you and you can trust them. It works both ways. Theory X leadership, it doesn't, because the only thing that they can trust is that you stay away from them or that you're going to tell them how to do their job. Okay. Well, as my team and I built up our trust for one another, I was able to step out of their way and let them do them. And what I learned and I watched is the more I gave them opportunities for success, the more they grew. One of the benefits of Theory Y leadership is that we want to see our employees grow. That is one of the main purposes behind it. And after all, shouldn't that be the intent of every supervisor and every leader, is to watch our employees grow, to be bigger and better than what they currently are, to make them have personal growth and professional growth, and then in turn, aren't we growing? Something to think about. Well, as I mentioned earlier, decentralized command. It has other terminologies, and it even has an antithesis. The other antithesis behind that would be micromanaging. I know I don't like that word, never have. There's also transformative versus transformational leadership. They all have opposites. I invite each and every one of you this evening to look up and research more about Theory Y leadership or decentralized command leadership. And one of the things that I've learned through my application, not only in a leadership position, but also in a leadership capacity of a group dynamic, though it's not a defined leadership position, but is to foster trust. And the reason why I keep mentioning in trust is because trust you can start fostering and giving mentoring. Mentoring will help yourself and another person to grow and continue to grow. And then that person continues to grow. And then they mentor another person and so on and so forth. And before we realize it, we're fostering a community of personal and professional growth and development, whether it be for our organization or our team or our company. It does not matter. It continues to snowball in the positive. Meanwhile, if we aspire to or try to maintain on Theory X, you're going to see employees resent coming into work. They're going to call off. That's going to put more of a burden on the employees that are showing up because, again, they're only showing up because they don't want to get in trouble. They don't want to be fired. They don't want to be damaged in their financial responsibility, so they come to work. But as we grow and foster the trust and the mentoring, we also learn to gain commitment. Now, in the social studies or the psychological studies is an actual study of industrial and organizational psychology. And in organizational psychology, they actually talk about 3 layers of commitment. The first layer of commitment is the people come to work because they love the job. They love who they work with. They love what they get to do, so they want to keep coming to work. Second layer of commitment is the layer of commitment where people come to work because it's an economical and social benefit to them. What do I mean by that? Well, what I mean is if they don't come to work anymore, then they don't have a job. They don't have any way to pay for their bills, and they don't have a way to pay for their needs in their day-to-day life. The social value of it is perhaps that company that they work for is their social circle. And so if they feel that if they walk away from these people, then they won't have that social life, and they're not going to know what to do. The third type of commitment talks about what I was just mentioning, where it goes on about they have some sense of ownership to the company because they feel that the company that they're working for provides a way of personal and professional development. So they want to stay with that company because they know that company is going to help them to grow and give them opportunities to succeed. And it's going to give them tasks and challenges. And so they stay for that. However, especially the last commitment, that last commitment can come with a consequence. Is if you have an employee who is an intrinsically hard worker, and you have that employee that's coming into work day in and day out, and they're mentoring, and then they have an opportunity for growth, and they're not granted that growth, you run the risk of that employee losing that layer of commitment, and now their work ethic now dwindles and dies off. It's a risk. It's a challenge. I have been a Theory X leader, and I've also been a Theory Y leader. And I can tell you that the benefit of a Theory Y is exponential. It builds camaraderie, it builds unity, and I have never seen anything positive come from a Theory X style leadership. In closing, an individual that I have looked up to, I have read his literature multiple times, is retired United States Marine Corps Jim Mattis. In his book Call Sign, he talks in the near end of his book, he states, everybody needs to be mentored or a mentor. Nobody wants to be a tyrant. What are we doing to not be a tyrant in our teams, in our groups, in our organizations? I invite you to try and challenge yourself to find ways to better not only yourself, but also to better your teams, your groups, and your organizations. Thank you.